morning, students. Today we'll discuss on urinary tract infection, the next infective syndrome. After in the last class we have discussed about meningitis. Today we'll discuss on urinary tract infection. That is microbiological perspective to urinary tract infection. So what is urinary tract infection? You have to know about the urinary tract first. So urinary tract extends from renal cortex to urethra. That means from the kidney, then followed by ureter, the bladder, and urethra. So that is the renal tract. So infection or inflammation in any of this tract by microorganisms is the urinary tract infection. So when you see the definition, it means it is a disease caused by microbial invasion of the urinary tract that extends from renal cortex of the kidney to urethral meatus. And you have to know some terms like bacteriuria and pyuria. So bacteriuria and pyuria, you know, bacteremia. What is bacteremia? It is the presence of bacteria in the blood. Presence of bacteria in the blood is bacteremia. Presence of virus in the blood is viremia. Like that, bacteriuria means presence of detectable bacteria in urine is bacteriuria, and presence of pus cells in the urine. When you see, you can see this under the microscope. Presence of pus cells in urine. It is called pyuria. So when you see the epidemiology of UTI, urinary tract infection, it is the second most common infection in the community. In the community, urinary tract infections are the second most common infections followed by after respiratory infections, respiratory tract infections. So in the community, you see respiratory tract infections more common. But this UTI is the second most common infection in the community. And this UTI accounts for 35% of total hospital acquired infections. That means they are more common. 35 accounts to 35% of total hospital acquired infections. And prevalence is 10% of humans develop UTI in some part of their life. So all the human beings, that means most of them, 10%, they develop UTI in some part of their life, either in childhood or in young adult stage, or children, some part of the life they develop UTI in some part of their life. And it is the leading cause of gram-negative sepsis or urosepsis. Urosepsis means infection into the urinary tract as well as the infection seen in the bloodstream. It results in urosepsis. It is the leading cause of urosepsis, especially in hospitalized patients. And urinary catheters are the origin of nearly 50% of nosocomial UTIs. Because of this instrumentation, urinary catheters, these are the causative agents for nearly 50% of hospital-acquired UTIs. This urinary tract infection is classified in two ways. One, based on anatomical site involved. Based on the anatomical site, it is classified as a lower urinary tract infection or upper urinary tract infection, and depending upon the source of infection where it is originated, it is classified as hospital acquired UTI or community acquired UTI. So basing on the site involved, it is UTI is classified as lower UTI, upper UTI. Lower UTI means the sites involved include urethra and bladder. Urethra and bladder. Upper UTI, the sites involved include kidney and ureter. Upper UTI means the infection to the urinary tract involving kidney and ureter. So in lower UTI, you have local manifestations like dysuria. Dysuria means burning micturition. The patient will be having urgency and frequency. The number he passes urine more number of times, there will be a severe urgency and burning micturition. These are the local manifestations seen in lower UTI. Whereas in upper UTI, you see the local manifestations like dysuria, urgency and frequency. Along with that, there will be systemic manifestations like high-grade temperature, vomiting, then abdominal pain or pain near the flank region or near the kidney. You can observe the pain. route of spread. So how it is spreading? Lower UTI mainly spreads by ascending route. We'll see in the pathogenesis what is ascending route and descending route. Here you know that the route of spread for lower UTI is ascending route. Ascending route means from urethra upwards. You know the renal urinary tract, you know. So ascending route means from urethra, the infection spreads to bladder, then from bladder to ureter, and from ureter it can spread even to kidney. That is the ascending route. That is the route most common route of spread in lower UTI is ascending route. In upper UTI, in both ways it is common, both ascending and descending route. The upper UTI can occur. Then occurrence when you see both lower and upper UTI. Lower UTI is more common than upper UTI. So it is the most common UTI is lower UTI. That is lower urinary tract infection affecting urethra and bladder. Now we'll see what are the predisposing factors. So who are more prevalent or into whom the prevalence is more common, in which age group it is more common, we'll see. When you see according to gender wise, females are more prevalent to UTI than males. Why? Because they have short urethra when compared to males. The urethra in females is short and the close proximity of urethral meatus to anus. That means the urethra is very nearby to anus. That's why, because of this close proximity also, the infection rates are high in females when compared to males. That's why females are more prone to urinary tract infection when compared to males, because of short urethra and close proximity of urethral meatus to anus. When you see age, incidence increases with age. That means when the children are in very small age group, that is during first year of life, prevalence is same in both males and females. And after first year of age, incidence decreases in males until old age. That means the incidence of UTI in males decreases, and in females, the incidence keeps on increasing after first year of life. Around 5 to 17 years of age, incidence of bacteria will be 1 to 3%. In adults, incidence is more, increased up to 10 to 20%. There are also chances of reinfection also. Once the person may have a urinary tract infection in his lifetime, there are more chances of reinfection again and again. That is, it continues or it repeats, and that is called reinfection. It is common in females and it is mostly observed in 20 to 40-year age group. So incidence is more in females when compared to males, and it is more in females when compared to males, and also incidence increases with age. And in pregnancy, you see there is some anatomical and hormonal changes. There is increased uterus will be compressing the this bladder, urinary bladder. That is the anatomical change you find during pregnancy. That anatomical change and some hormonal changes, they favor urinary tract infection in pregnant females, and it is mainly seen as asymptomatic bacteriuria. Asymptomatic bacteriuria means there is infection. There is bacterial infection, but that is seen as asymptomatic condition. That means without any symptoms, bacterial infection is there. That is seen, observed during pregnancy. Asymptomatic bacteriuria. Other predisposing factors are some structural and functional abnormalities seen with the urinary tract can also cause or the predisposing factors to urinary tract infection. What are the structural abnormalities, like if the person is having urethral stricture, a constriction due to any reason, or congenital urethral strictures, or renal or kidney stones, or ureteric stones, or bladder stones, or prostate enlargement. You see, this is the most common. Benign prostate enlargement is commonly seen in males. That prostate enlargement, tumors, renal transplants, these all they cause the structural obstruction to the urinary flow. So they cause structural obstruction. And functional obstruction can happen in case of neurogenic bladder, due to spinal cord injury or multiple sclerosis. That is the functional obstruction which happens due to some spinal cord injury or multiple sclerosis. There is a functional defect in the bladder called neurogenic bladder. So due to this structural obstruction and functional obstruction, you see obstruction to the urine flow, normal urine flow. So there is obstruction to the normal urine flow. There can be urinary retention or urinary stasis in the bladder, which results in infection. So because of the structural obstruction and functional obstruction to the normal urine flow, you find urinary stasis or retention in the bladder, which results in infection, and that is a predisposing factor to urinary tract infection. And other factors like bacterial virulence factors. Bacteria will be having pilae or fimbriae on their surface, and these pilae or fimbriae, they cause adhesion to the uroepithelium. They adhere to the uroepithelium, they fix to the uroepithelium, and they colonize there. They settle there, they multiply there in the uroepithelium and cause infection. That is one predisposing factor, the virulence factors present on the bacteria. And other predisposing factor is vesicoureteric reflex weakening. There is a weakening of vesicoureteric reflex observed in some persons. The vesicoureteric reflex is decreased or weakened, which allows urine from bladder in a reverse flow up to the ureters or sometimes into the renal pelvis. Because of this weakening of vesicoureteric reflex, there is a reverse flow of urine from bladder up to ureter and sometimes to renal pelvis, which predispose to UTI. And some genetic factors are also there, like genetically determined receptors which are present help in bacterial attachment. These are some predisposing factors. What predisposing factors you have seen? Gender. Females are more, UTI is more prevalent in females than males, and age. With increasing age, with increasing age, the incidence also increases, and it is pregnant females are more prone to asymptomatic bacteriuria. If there is any structural abnormality or functional obstruction in the urinary tract, then there is high chance of urinary retention and infection. The bacterial virulence factors also play some role. Weakening of vesicoureteric reflex and some genetic factors play a role in the prevalence of urinary tract infection, and they are the predisposing factors to UTI. What is the etiology? When you observe the etiology, it is mostly UTI can be caused by different microorganisms like bacteria or fungi or parasites or viruses. So they are mostly caused by bacteria. When you compare different microorganisms, most common cause of UTI is bacterial agents. So what bacteria cause this UTI? Is commonly it is caused by Escherichia coli. That is, it is called uropathogenic Escherichia coli, and it is the common cause. 70% of all forms of UTI. E. coli is the commonest cause of all forms of UTI, whether it is community acquired UTI or nosocomial or hospital acquired UTI or upper urinary tract infection or lower urinary tract infection. Escherichia coli, that bacteria is the most common cause. 70% commonest cause of all forms of UTI. Other flora also has a role in this UTI, like Klebsiella, Proteus, Enterococci also, they also cause UTI. And hospital-acquired UTIs are mainly caused by Enterobacteriaceae family members like E. coli, Klebsiella, Proteus, along with Enterobacteriaceae family members. It is hospital-acquired UTI caused by Staphylococci, Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter, and these all are multi-drug resistant variants. Hospital-acquired UTIs are very resistant bacteria or resistant organisms. They are multi-drug resistant types. And UTIs can be caused by viruses and parasites as well, but they're generally not considered as urinary pathogens. And cause due to viruses and parasites is also rare, not common. So the common bacterial agents that cause UTI, you see, are Escherichia coli is the most common. Klebsiella, Proteus, Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter, Enterobacter, Serratia species. They are the most common. They cause UTI. And gram-positive cocci, which cause UTI, includes Staph saprophyticus, Staphylococcus aureus, Staphylococcus epidermidis, Enterococcus species. Fungi that cause UTI includes Candida albicans, and the parasites which can cause UTI include Schistosoma hematobium, Trichomonas vaginalis. Viruses that can cause UTI include herpes simplex virus, adenovirus, cytomegalovirus. But these are rare causes of urinary tract infection. Most common is Escherichia coli, followed by other members of Enterobacteriaceae members like Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter, like that. This is about the pathogenesis. So how this bacteria is entering into the urinary tract and how it is moving from urethra upwards or downwards, we can see in the pathogenesis. So bacteria invade urinary tract by two routes. There are two routes, ascending route and descending route. Ascending route, in ascending route, it is the most common route. Ascending route is the most common route, and it is caused by bacteria, enteric endogenous bacteria. That means commensal flora. So ascending infection is commonly caused by commensal flora present in the intestine or the fecal Escherichia coli because of the close proximity of the urethra to the fecal E. coli in the females. You can see this ascending route of infection most common in females. This is the most ascending route is the more common, and it is caused by commensal flora or enteric endogenous bacteria like E. coli and other gram-negative bacteria like Klebsiella, Proteus or Enterococci, and it is facilitated by ascending route infection is facilitated by sexual intercourse or any instrumentation like catheters, placing of urinary catheters. They also favor this ascending type of infection. Ascending type means the bacteria is colonized in the urethra. In the urethra, first the bacteria enters into the urethra. Then from urethra it colonizes there or settles there, multiplies there, and from urethra it reaches the bacteria can ascend into bladder. The infection in the bladder is called cystitis, and from bladder it can reach the ureter. If the vesico-ureteric reflex is weakened, this urine also flows in the reverse direction. The bacteria can also move upwards from the bladder to the ureter and also to the kidney, resulting in kidney injury. That inflammation to ureter and kidney, it is called pyelonephritis. Infection to ureter and kidney is called pyelonephritis. The other route is descending route. In descending route, first the infection is present in the blood. The person will be having bacteremia or infection due to some other cause. The person will be having bacteremia. That means presence of bacteria in the blood, and there will be hematogenous seeding of this bacteria into the kidney. From the blood, the bacteria, it is seated in the kidney. So the bacteria moves from kidney in the downward direction. That is the descending route of spread that takes place in the urinary tract infection. Descending route means the hematogenous seeding of bacteria takes place in the kidney. From kidney, it spreads to ureter, then bladder, then urethra. From kidney to urethra, the bacteria move downwards, and it is the descending route. This colonization of bacteria or adhesion of this bacteria takes place in the urethra, and this bacteria adhere to urethral epithelium with the help of fimbriae, P. fimbriae or some pilae or some other fimbriae are present like Mannus resistant fimbriae and Escherichia coli, etc. So first the bacteria adheres or colonizes to the urethral epithelium in the urethral region. Then from urethra it ascends upwards towards bladder, and infection or inflammation of the bladder, it results in cystitis. some bacterial toxins produced during this colonization. They will facilitate for ascent by inhibiting peristalsis. So these bacterial toxins, they they facilitate the bacteria to ascend upwards to ureter or to kidney. So the bacteria can move from bladder to ureter and then to kidney, resulting in pyelonephritis, and they can also result in acute tubular injury. Acute tubular injury means there is tubular obstruction and damage occurring to the tubules, resulting in interstitial nephritis. That is acute tubular injury, which is due to the bacterial toxins. These bacterial toxins, which facilitate the movement of the microorganisms or bacteria to the ureter or kidney, and after reaching to the kidney, because of this bacterial toxins, inflammatory cascade or inflammatory cells are released, and all these inflammatory cells like cytokines, other macrophages and other inflammatory cells, they cause the tubular obstruction and damage, resulting in interstitial nephritis. When you see the descending route, for the descending route, first the infection should be present in the blood. That is, bacteremia is first observed. Prior to urinary tract infection, the person will be having bacteremia, and because of this bacteremia, from the bacteria from the blood goes and gets deposited in the kidney. From kidney, it descends downwards to ureter, bladder and urethra. The organisms causing descending type of infection is Staph aureus, Salmonella, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Leptospira, and Candida. These all are involved in descending type of infection. So till now we have seen that different organisms like bacteria, virus, fungi, or parasites cause this urinary tract infection. Our body also has some defensive mechanisms. Our body, whether it is urine factors or mucosal immunity, we also show some defensive mechanisms against urinary tract infection. So what are those defensive mechanisms? It includes urine factors and mucosal immunity. What are the urine factors? Our urine is acidic and it has high urine osmolarity. Because of this acidic nature, it inhibits the entry of pathogens. So acidic urine and high urine osmolarity, they act as defensive mechanisms and they inhibit the bacterial adherence to the uroepithelium. Also, because of this mechanical flushing by urine flow, the bacteria are flushed out of urine. Because of that urine flow, the bacteria can be flushed out. This act as a defensive mechanism. Urine factors, that is acidic urine, high urine osmolarity, mechanical flushing by urine flow, they all act as defensive factors, defensive mechanisms against urinary tract infection. And uroepithelial secretion of cytokines, when a bacteria enters into the urinary tract, then because of that entry of because of the lipopolysaccharide of the bacteria, uroepithelium starts secreting the inflammatory cells or cytokines, and they act as defensive mechanisms against UTI. Mucosal IgA, they prevent attachment of pathogen to uroepithelium. It acts as defensive mechanism. Mucosal IgA, that doesn't allow the attachment of pathogen to uroepithelium. There is one protein called TAM-horsfall protein or uromucoid, which is a glycoprotein secreted by epithelial cells of the kidney. They serve as anti-adherence factor by binding to type 1. That doesn't allow the attachment or colonization of the bacteria. This TAM-horsfall protein doesn't allow the attachment of bacteria to the uroepithelial cells. Also, there is in men, there is zinc in the prostatic secretion, which is bactericidal. Zinc in the prostatic secretion in men, it is bactericidal and it can kill the bacteria if any bacteria enters and gets attached to the uroepithelium. And also the long urethra seen in males acts as defensive mechanism to urinary tract infection. So these are some host defense mechanisms against urinary tract infection. Acidic urine and some proteins like TAM-horsfall protein, then cytokine secretion by uroepithelial cells, mucosal IgA, then zinc in the prostatic secretion, long urethra in males, and mechanical flushing by urine flow. They all act as defensive mechanism against urinary tract infection. What are the clinical manifestations? So how do the urinary tract infection manifest? There are three types of manifestations. One is asymptomatic bacteriuria, then it can manifest as lower urinary tract infection, upper urinary tract infection. These are the three types. What is asymptomatic bacteriuria? Already we have discussed about asymptomatic bacteria, which is commonly seen in pregnant females. That means bacterial infection is present, significant bacteria is present in the urine, but there will be no symptoms. No symptoms are seen. That's why it is called asymptomatic bacteriuria. Isolation of specified quantity to counter bacteria in appropriately collected urine sample obtained from a person without symptoms of UTI. So it is common in females and incidence increases with age. In lower urinary tract infection, you see cystitis and acute urethral syndrome. In upper UTI, it is called pyelonephritis. We'll see the clinical manifestations now. Asymptomatic bacteriuria is clinically significant in pregnant female and persons who undergo prostatic surgery or any urological procedure or bleeding is anticipated. Asymptomatic bacteriuria is clinically significant. So routine screening should be done to those pregnant females, and treatment for asymptomatic UTI is highly recommended because when it is, if it is not treated, because there is no symptom, if it is not identified and if it is not properly treated, especially in pregnant females, it can result in severe damage to both mother and fetus. Both of them, it can result in severe infections or severe urinary tract infections. Complications may result to both mother and fetus. That's why routine screening should be done to pregnant women because they will be having this asymptomatic bacteriuria. Asymptomatic bacteria is not clinically significant in non-pregnant females, premenopausal women, old age, catheterized patients, or patients with spinal injury. In those persons, neither screening or treatment of asymptomatic UTI is required. So routine screening is especially required for whom? In pregnant women and people who are undergoing prostatic surgery or any urological procedure. When bleeding is anticipated, routine screening should be done, and in that routine screening, if you find significant bacteriuria without any symptoms, you should start the treatment and you should treat the urinary tract infection. What symptoms are seen in lower urinary tract infection? You find cystitis, that is infection to the bladder, and the second manifestation is acute urethral syndrome. In cystitis, you find dysuria. Dysuria means burning micturition. Dysuria is burning micturition. Then there is frequency, urgency, and suprapubic tenderness. Because of the urinary retention in the bladder, there is suprapubic tenderness. Urine becomes cloudy with bad odor, and in some cases there will be blood in the urine called hematuria. There is no associated systemic manifestation. So this is the difference between lower UTI and upper UTI. In lower UTI, you have all the cystitis manifestations like dysuria, frequency, urgency. They are also seen in upper UTI, but in systemic manifestations are present in upper UTI. They are absent in lower UTI. Acute urethral syndrome is the second manifestation seen in lower UTI. It is seen especially in young and sexually active females. The clinical symptoms of lower UTI as described for cystitis is seen here, even in acute urethral syndrome. But the bacterial count is low in acute urethral syndrome. It ranges from 10 to the power of 2 to 10 to the power of 5 CFU per ml. Pyuria is absent. Agents that cause acute urethral syndrome includes usual agents of UTI like E. coli, Klebsiella. Along with those organisms, few cases may be caused by gonococcus, chlamydia, herpes simplex virus, etc. That is acute urethral syndrome. The bacterial count is low in acute urethral syndrome. Other symptomology is same like lower UTI. Upper UTI, there is inflammation of kidney parenchyma, renal calcis, and the renal pelvis. It is associated with lower UTI symptoms like dysuria, burning micturition, frequency, urgency. Along with that, systemic manifestations like high-grade temperature, flank pain, vomiting will be present in upper UTI or pyelonephritis. Lower tract symptoms such as frequency, urgency, and burning micturition are anyway they are also there. Coming to the laboratory diagnosis, we have to collect the urine sample in a universal container. We have to take clean catch midstream urine sample. That means first flow of urine should be discarded. It can contain some commensal organism or commensal flora. That's why first flow should be discarded. Middle portion, that is called midstream urine sample, should be collected. And if the patient it cannot give proper midstream urine, especially in case of children or in the paralyzed patients, you can collect the sample by suprapubic aspiration from bladder. In catheterized patients, you see, catheterized patients also, in catheterized patients, the urine sample should not be collected from the bag, from the catheter bag. You should not collect the urine. You should collect the urine from the catheter tube, after clamping distally and disinfecting it with the help of a sterile syringe. From the catheter tube, we have to collect the urine sample. And immediately it should be processed, because there are high chances of multiplication of the flora. If any normal flora bacteria are present, the chances of multiplication of those bacteria more than the pathogenic bacteria. That's why it should be taken immediately to the laboratory and it should be processed immediately. If any delay is anticipated, then the sample should be refrigerated or stored by adding boric acid, or you can collect the sample if delay is anticipated. You can collect the urine sample in transport medium. So after the sample is brought to the laboratory, you have to do screening tests. So what are the screening tests? Wet mount examination under the microscope. You can do, you can observe any pus cells are there or not. For the presence of pus cells, you can do wet mount examination. Leukocyte esterase test. This is the detection of enzyme esterase liberated from leukocyte. So this test you can do, leukocyte esterase test. Nitrate detection test, that is grease test, to identify any nitrate reproducing bacteria are there or not. We can know by doing this nitrate reduction test. Catalase test, if it is catalase positive, caused by the catalase positive bacteria, you can know them. Then you can do gram staining. Gram staining of the urine sample can be done, and you can know whether it is caused by bacilli or by cocci. With gram staining, you can know whether it is caused by bacilli or cocci, and you can observe the pus cells also in gram staining. And after the screen test, next you do culture. Culture of the sample, that is the urine sample is inoculated on Meconium agar, blood agar, or Cled agar. Cysteine, lysine, electrolyte deficient medium is Cled medium. So you can inoculate the urine sample on these three different types of media, that is Meconium agar, blood agar, and Cled agar, and you incubate it overnight, and next day you see the colonies. If the colonies are more, that means if it is more than 10 to the power of 5 colony forming unit per ml of urine, it is called significant bacteriuria. What is called significant bacteriuria? If the colony count is less, that is 10 to the power of 4 to 10 to the power of 5 CFU per ml, it is called doubtful significance or probably significant bacteriuria, and it should be clinically correlated. If the bacterial count is still less than 10 to the power of 4, it is considered as insignificant, and it can be caused by commensal bacteria or any contamination during collection. You can consider like that. So these are the different types, colony counts which suggest whether the infection is significant or probably significant or insignificant. That is semi-quantitative method. This colony count is done by using a standard loop method. It is done by using standard loop method with the loop measuring 0.4 ml. That means nichrome wire loop, and the diameter should be 0.04 mm. With that, when you take a drop of urine and inoculate on the media and observe the colonies, then if you find in these three ranges, you describe it as clinically significant, probably significant, or insignificant. Quantitative cultures can be done by another method called pour plate method, which is where you can count the colonies. That is, pour plate method is a quantitative culture method. So, what treatment you can give to urinary tract infection based on antimicrobial susceptibility testing? The preferred drugs are quinolones. They are sensitive to these urinary pathogens, that is norfloxacin, nitrofurantoin, cephalosporins, and aminoglycosides can be used. These are the preferred drugs. In case of hospital acquired UTI or with multi-drug resistant strains, you go with higher antibiotics like carbapenems, like meropenem, beta-lactam inhibitor combinations like piperacillin, tazobactam, or fosfomycin can be used for hospital acquired UTIs or with multi-drug resistant variants. So you have to use carbapenems, meropenems, and beta-lactam inhibitor combinations, piperacillin, tazobactam. What are the culture identification features of common organisms causing UTI? So Escherichia coli. So in culture, how will you see on McConkey and Cled? You see on McConkey, lactose fermenting, flat lactose fermenting pink colored colonies. And in smear, it is seen as gram-negative bacilli, it is motile. Biochemical reactions of Escherichia coli, you see as catalase positive, oxidase negative. Invictus U2, it is plus plus minus minus. And TSI, it is acidic slant and acidic bud. That is yellow by yellow. It will be yellow by yellow in color. Klebsiella pneumoniae, also it can be grown as, it is seen as a mucoid lactose fermenting colony on McConkey agar. It is a gram-negative bacilli. It is non-motile. That is the difference between E. coli and Klebsiella. Almost it has lactose fermenting non-mucoid colonies. Here it is mucoid lactose fermenting colonies. Both are gram-negative bacilli. Here it is a motile bacilli. Klebsiella is non-motile bacilli. Klebsiella is catalase positive, oxidase negative. Imic reactions are opposite to that of Escherichia coli. It is minus minus plus plus, but the TSI is same like acidic slant and acidic bud. That is yellow by yellow. Proteus, it is seen as non-lactose fermenting colony on McConkey agar. On bread agar, you can see some wavy type of growth, that is called swarming type of growth. Culture microscopy, you see as gram-negative pleomorphic bacilli, which is motile. Proteus is motile and it is catalase positive, oxidase negative, alkaline with the TSI, alkaline slant, pink by yellow. Alkaline slant and acidic bud. And immune reactions, indole negative or positive, can be both variants. Depending upon the species, there is changes in the positive or negative reactions to indole. Citrate also, it is variable, positive or negative depending upon the species. Enterococcus, you can see magenta pink colonies of Enterococcus and McConkey medium. And microscopy, you can see gram-positive cocaine pairs, spectacle shaped organism which are non-motile. It is catalase negative, bile-esculin test is positive for Enterococcus. Staphylococcus and Staph saprophyticus, they are seen. Staph aureus is seen as golden yellow colonies on blood agar. Staph saprophyticus is seen as white colonies on blood agar, non-hemolytic colonies. And both are gram-positive cocaine clusters. It is both are non-motile. When you see Staph aureus, it is catalase positive, coagulase positive. Staph saprophyticus is catalase positive and it is coagulase negative. That is the difference between Staph aureus and Staph saprophyticus. It is resistant to another biochemical reaction. Which is important is it is resistant to novobiosis. So like this, by different culture identification methods, you can observe what type of organism it is by inoculating the sample on the media like McConkey agar or blood agar or Cled medium. Okay, depending on these identification features, you can identify the organism causing urinary tract infection. After the organism is isolated, you follow with the antimicrobial susceptibility testing, and you do the antimicrobial susceptibility testing so that you can know which drug is sensitive to that pathogen or that microorganism. Okay, thank you.